Welcome into AWA Unleashed. We are the preeminent podcast and video stream dedicated to the old American Wrestling Association. My name is Chris Tubbs. I am one part of it. I bring us in, but then, of course, I don't do the heavy lifting. I hand it over to the voice of Minnesota wrestling, the one and only Mick Karch. Mick, I just put you over. I hope you're happy. Okay, I'm going to remove you from the screen because I know that you're having some problems. That being said, that sounded really bad, but we'll get back to it here. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Nice to see you, Mick. Nice to see you.
Great to see you too. And I really appreciate every time somebody mentions my name, the word heavy. It's associated with it. Heavy lifting, heavy physique. Can we remove that? Can we?
No. That is part of the vernacular on this show, Mick. I know one thing. We're going to get it out of the way. Of course, you see, 7th Avenue Pizza. Want to thank everybody at 7th Avenue Pizza. They still do a great job in terms of the best high-quality pizza on the market. 7thAvenuePizza.com. Check it out. The best pizza. I have it when I'm watching the Vikings, for crying out loud. Now, I mean, I can't, pizza and football, they just go together. So got that, as well as Soda Stick. You can get your AWA Unleashed hoodies. Going to put right here. You can get your personalized hoodies, Mick, because now we're starting to get into fall season. Hoodie weather up here. So go to AWA Unleashed at sodastickco.com. Get your name personalized, and it's black and white, really cool. And type in Unleashed as a promo code. You get 15% off. We've also got some new swag coming down the line. We've got a fun guest. I'm trying to get through all this because I know we got a lot of stuff to get to. But you also, Mick, have a big update. We're almost a heavy update regarding what we've got coming up with all the heavy lifting that you've been doing.
One more shot.
This is good. Heavy lifting. This is good. This is good, Mick.
This is a good thing. We've been talking about the AWA Reunion number 2, and now we've got a date and a place locked in. It is going to be October 29th from noon to 4, and it is going to be at Embassy Suites in Bloomington on American Boulevard. Now, further details as far as admission costs, the final lineup of who's going to be there, so on and so forth, will be posted as it becomes available on our AWA Unleashed fans page and also on the Slick Mick Old School Wrestling page. But we wanted to get the date out there, and seating is going to be very limited. So when you get all the info, particularly how to pre-order your admission, do it right away. I think they can accommodate a couple hundred people, and they're going to go quickly. But October 29th, Embassy Suites, American Boulevard in Bloomington, and it's AWA Reunion number 2. Going to be a great day.
I think somebody was actually calling me about it right then and there. So apparently somebody wants to get in on it, but that's great. I know we've been looking forward to it. But again, mark off your calendar for that day. That being said, Mick, this is an old school podcast. We focus on the AWA, but at the same time, you have your foot still firmly in the wrestling product today, working a lot with Midwest All-Star Wrestling. So, and you and I have been to Zero Wrestling, and we're both fans of AEW, and we watch WWE, we watch Impact. It's hard to look at the old school and then try and talk about the new school, because I feel like there's a disconnect from fans. And I think today you have got the perfect guest for us to maybe bridge that gap, and somebody that can talk about it that was, part of it years ago, but yet is still very much involved in the product today. And I feel like out of all of the conversations that we've had, this might be probably one of the most objective, honest conversations that I think we're going to have to date.
I think so. And, talk about old school and going back in time and what have you. I can't believe I think it's 33 years since I first met this gentleman. And you alluded to the fact, Chris, that he is just as involved today, if not more so, than he was 33 years ago.
And it's hard to get a guest on this program that we can say that about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And he's a great friend. And I'm telling you, we're in the Twin Cities area, and talk about a guy who's over in the Twin Cities area, let alone all over the country, all over the world, for crying out loud. Let's bring him in. Much anticipated. There he is. There he is, ladies and gentlemen. Gentleman, dynamic, Jerry Lynn. Jerry, we wanted to get somebody on here who was going to really pop the ratings for us. We'll do that on a future episode, but right now we're going to go with you.
I was going to say you need to raise your standards.
Yeah. But
a low bar, Jerry, is still a bar.
I know.
You're looking fantastic, my friend. We got a lot to talk about. I mentioned, you and I going back literally 33 years, which is just incredible to me that much time has gone by. But Chris, I'm going to let you kick it off with the opening question here, and we're going to have a fun ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I mean, there's a lot that we're going to get to here, but we're going to, try and go chronologically the best that we can. So, Jerry, first of all, I got to say, I think the weather is probably better where you're at than when we're at, just for the record.
It's beautiful today. It's supposed to get up to the upper 80s here, and not a cloud. Well, a few clouds in the sky, but it's beautiful.
Nice. You can tell Mick. Yeah, Mick and I are both inside with the shade shut. I don't know what that means. So I want to go back to before you got into wrestling. Let's start kind of from the genesis here.
Oh boy, what do you
involved in wrestling? No,
well,
I'm just gonna know what you want to tell. Yeah,
I blame Soldat Ustinov.
Oh God,
because I grew up watching wrestling since I was 6 years old. So the first time I watched wrestling was in 1969, and I loved it right away. But growing up, I never dreamed of becoming a professional wrestler, because back then it was still land of the giants. And so it just so happened to, and I did quite a few sports in high school and stuff, but it wasn't till probably I was 23, a friend of mine started dating Soldat Ustinov, who is 6'6", well over 300 pounds, doing the Russian gimmick. And so we went to go watch him wrestle one time, and met him and told him I always loved wrestling. He says, well, you should give it a try. I said, no, I'm too small. He says, no, they'll match up guys your size. Yeah, right. So he said, well, come on down to meet the promoter, Eddie Sharkey at the time. And so I went down and met Eddie and saw his camp, but I knew I wasn't ready. I was probably 155 pounds soaking wet. So I thought, well, I'll just start working out a little bit, or working out again, I should say. And then in a couple of years down the road, if there's something open, maybe I'll still pursue it. So I just started working out again. And at the time I'd been doing a job in the summer. I was laying telephone cable underground, and one of my coworkers, we got to be really good friends. We'd go to the gym and work out together. And he was a wrestling fan also. But so it was probably about 2 years later, he came to me and he said, hey, I found out Brad Rheingans has a camp he's throwing together at the last minute. He's taking $1,000 off. He says, you want to try it? And I said, sure. So took out a loan, went through Brad's camp, and that's how it all started. I got to say, though, one of the things that made me think maybe I can actually do this is we went to go see an indie show at some bar show somewhere. And after seeing some of the matches, I that's when I said, maybe I can do this.
I don't know what you're implying there, but we certainly saw it all back in the day. And before we move ahead, you mentioned Brad Rheingans.
Yes.
And I don't think Brad gets the credit on the national wrestling scene for not only how good he was, but how frickin' strong this guy was. Talk about Brad.
he had a gift. He had a gift from God. I'll tell you, he was made for wrestling. And I'm not talking about pro. I'm talking about amateur wrestling. Any guy who medals in the Pan Am Games, and he was on 2 Olympic teams. And it's sad that the year the whole world pretty much had him slated for taking the gold is the year we boycotted. But he was incredible, and I couldn't think of a better teacher or a coach. I actually called him probably about 6 months ago, and he's hard to get a hold of. But
Yes, he is.
I got his number from Brock, and I called Brad, left a message, and I think it was like 2.5, 3 months later, Brad called back, and I just thanked him. I said, I can't think of anyone better for a coach, and I thanked him for his he was very straightforward and honest. He didn't try and, make any false promises or anything like that. And I learned so much. The things he said the first day of camp, I still say when I do seminars. I tell all the students and all the wrestlers what Brad told me the first day of camp, and there's several things. But yeah, so I called Brad, and I finally got a hold of him, and I just wanted to thank him. So, yeah, he's amazing.
Chris,
I was just going to say, well, what are some of the things that he told you that really stick with you?
He said, wow, there's so much. One of the things that really stuck with me was he said, and he wasn't trying to discourage us or anything. He just wanted to be blunt and honest. And one of the first things he said was, don't go into this thinking you're going to be a big superstar and a multimillionaire, because chances are it's not going to happen.
Wow.
And it's true. He said, look at the amount of full-time jobs there are with large companies compared to the amount of people pursuing those jobs. It's a tough grind. And to tell you the truth, I never hit the big money run. I was fortunate enough to make a living at it for, I think, 17 years out of the 24. The first 7 years I had to have a regular job to support my wrestling habit till I finally was able to make a living at it. But so I was fortunate in that aspect where I was able to make a living at it, but I never hit the big money run or anything. So,
wait a minute now. You can't tell me that those matches between you and Judge Randy Gusto back at Ropers and Fridley didn't set you up for retirement 30-some years ago? Come on.
Be saying that in Wally Carbo's voice.
Yeah, exactly. Listen. Talking about Brad Rheingans real quick. We've tried to line up Brad for this AWA reunion, and talk about a hermit. I mean, I hate to say it, but he really kind of, he's secluded a little bit. So just to hear you talking about him and giving him his props is tremendous. Chris, I know you got a question about Jerry's first matches.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to ask you, so how long did you train with Eddie before you got your first match? And take me through the process of getting into your first match and how you feel that it went.
Well, Brad's the one who trained me, and Brad's camp was 3 months long, and it was 4 nights a week, 3 hours a night. But I knew I wasn't ready after that. And so Brad still let me keep coming when he had other camps going on. And actually 7 years in, he called me and asked me to come down and help him a little bit with the in-ring stuff with the camp he had been running. But and then I'd also go down to Eddie's, wherever he would have his school set up, and keep practicing and stuff. So I can't really say how long exactly, but I just knew I didn't want to go out there and embarrass myself, which I did. Actually, my first match was for a TV taping in New Ulm at a National Guard Armory. I forgot the name of the guy. Mick, you would remember, I think. Not Paul Alberstein. That was in Chicago. Golly, I can't remember his name now. But he was doing a TV taping for a pilot. And that I rode there with Johnny Love. That's the first day I met Johnny Love, and we're still friends to this day.
That's fantastic.
We're actually going the first week of October to go visit Johnny for a few days down in Phoenix. He moved to Phoenix, but So that night, I had my first match. Actually, the first match I had was a tag match against the Terminators. Remember Riggs and
Oh, absolutely.
Riggs? Yeah.
Sure.
And then I had 3 matches that night. The second match was a 6-man tag against Derek Dukes, Steve Olsanowski, and Tom Zink.
Oh my God.
And then the third match, I actually had to have a normal match against Tom Burton, who I went through Brad's camp with. So that was the very first time I wrestled. I had 3 different matches that night.
God, just tremendous memories, you know, and the names. And we're going to talk about Mr. Burton here in a little bit. You know, you were such a mainstay with Eddie's promotion, Pro Wrestling America. At first it was George's, and then, of course, after that it was Roper's at Fridley. I always called it the Snake Pit because of the intensity of the fans. And I mean, just it was a phenomenon at the time. And the roster was great. You kind of had a mix of the younger guys like yourself getting into the business, and every once in a while, Eddie would bring in, you know, a Mr. Saito or a Road Warrior Hawk or whatever. But of those initial matches at Roper's, who were some of your favorite opponents that come to mind that people might not normally talk about?
Oh, well, one was Ricky Rice, of course.
Yes.
I mean, talk about entertaining. He's the first guy to make me break character in the ring. And it was you know, he was doing that crazy prophet gimmick, you know,
Yes, yes.
so wacky. And I loved his promos when he's talking about sitting on the mountain of Banff and smoking the moss with the goat and all that.
That's right.
Out there. It was crazy. It was hilarious. While we were at a VFW show, I think it was in Savage or something. And they were selling popcorn and peanuts and stuff. Well, when Ricky was doing his thing, going around the ring, touching foreheads and stuff, once he got in the ring, people started throwing peanuts in the ring. And he's running around stomping on peanuts going, I love peanut butter sandwiches. And I had to hide my face. He was doing it as like it was a cross between Ricky the Prophet and Sheik Adnan, I think.
And Sheik Adnan going in there too. Yeah. Your Highness.
Mm-hmm.
I know. I want to talk about another guy that I know you're very familiar with from back in the Roper days. A guy that, to me, what a tragedy that this guy didn't get his just due before he passed, and that was Larry Cameron.
Oh, I know. Unbelievable. He was amazing. And the matches he had with Tommy Ferrara were incredible.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That's another, you know, I remember working. Oh, there's so many guys back then, like Horace the Psychopath, JB Trask, and Tommy Ferrara, and of course Sean. And I'm trying to think, Gallers. You know, it was much fun. It was, like you said, it was a very eclectic crew and a variety of styles and people, and you know, it was weird. We just it was a special time. I even told Sean probably about a year and a half ago, we talked, and I told him, I said, you know what? I said, it was probably only about 2 years into our careers, and we had that feud up there. And I said, you know, we still didn't know what we were doing, but I said, that's some of my favorite work of my whole career, because we got together just about every day, looking at tapes, whatever we could find, studying. And we would actually Sean was great with computers, so we would actually go to Kinko's and he would print up posters and the little 4x6 cards and tickets, and we would go paper the town, you know, for Eddie and stuff. And so we did a little bit of everything together. But when we got in the ring, we had everybody thinking we hated each other's guts. And I told them that was some of my favorite work of my entire career.
It was absolute magic. No question about it.
I want to, sorry, Mike, I just want to follow up with that. So when you and Sean are kind of starting this all out, and, you know, at that point, really, you didn't have, you know, access to a lot of video. Like, how did you guys try or, you know, mainly Sean, try and find like tapes or like some sort of matches from other parts of the country, or, you know, because tape trading at that point, I think, was just starting to really become a big thing, at least for, you know, for the fans.
I can't remember how or where we would get our tapes. But I know when RF Video had their kiosk at the Mall of America, I'd go
Oh,
down
huge. Yeah.
buy tapes there too. But yeah, we would watch tapes of Mexico, Japan, England, whatever we could find. And then that we loved it all, so we just tried to incorporate all the different styles in our matches.
Mhm.
You know, I remember, talking about Sean, and again, it gets to be so melancholy and kind of emotional sometimes about how much time has passed, because I'll see the old SNR footage when, we had you two on there doing a contract signing with Ray Webby, or what have you. And I know one clip in particular, you two got into a little slap fest.
Oh my God, yeah.
Before slap fests were a common thing, but you guys absolutely did create magic in the ring, no question about it. We're going to talk a little more about Sean, but I want to talk about Tom Burton. And you had a series for those fans around the country who are not familiar. The PWA, Eddie Sharkey's promotion, was red hot here for several years, especially after the AWA was kind of in its decline. But Tom Burton and yourself had some hellacious matches. And there's a shot of the late Tom Burton right there. Talk to me about Tom, and specifically, Jerry, I want to ask you, Tom made it to a certain level in the business. He worked as Tom Davis. Of course, he worked in the AWA for a while. I always thought that Tom had the potential to go farther in the business than he did. What's your take on that?
Well, here's a funny story about Tom and I. Years before going to Brad's camp, I was working at a dealership down in Lakeville, Minnesota. It was called, I think it was Jeff Belzer's.
Sure. Here you go.
And I was in the parts department, and Tom had started working there. I think he was detailing stuff. So he was with the service department or something like that. And while him and my manager didn't get along or see eye to eye. So because I was in the parts department, I was instantly the enemy. So Tom wasn't fond of me just because I was guilty by association with my manager. Well, then a few years later, first day of camp, I see Tom come in. I'm like, oh God.
Oh man.
So going through camp, and when we're going through drills and stuff and rolling around and whatever, Tom would always give me a little extra jab and stuff here and there, But after camp and stuff, Tom was a go-getter. He really wanted it. And he actually called me because he said, do you want to help me with the AWA? You want to do some squash matches and set up the ring? And I said, sure. So we would go get the ring at the warehouse, bring it to the Rochester Civic Center. Tom and I would set it up, do 3 squash matches each, tear down the ring, bring it back. And so we got to be really close. And Tom even said, he says, I was rough on you in camp because I want to make sure that you really want to do what you had to take. Mm-hmm. And back then, even, probably one of the smallest guys in the business.
Yeah.
There was, even on indies, it wasn't a very welcoming atmosphere.
Right.
I'll never forget one place, I can't remember exactly where or who it was, but walk, you were taught always go around and introduce yourself. One guy, he just looks at the monster. And he didn't say nothing to me, didn't shake my hand, nothing. Well, I get done wrestling and come in the back. Then he comes up to me to shake my hand and going, brother, I didn't know you could work. And I'm thinking to myself, why do you want to shake my hand now? You already showed me what a butthole you are. But I think Tom was a good sized guy. That's the name Beef Burton,
Oh, he was a beast.
Yeah. So I think he looked at me the same way, because when I went through camp, I was 170. So I wasn't exactly big, but there was a lot of times where, people would take liberties or, just, I don't know why, because they probably thought I didn't belong. But I always kept a little voice in my head that said, never let them make you quit.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Anyway, so bouncing back to Tom. So we did a lot of stuff stuff like that. And then actually one time, AWA, I can't remember who in the office called and said, "Hey, we're doing a house show up in Alexandria, Minnesota. Do you up and do the ring with Tom and have a regular match with Tom?" Yeah. So this is a night I'll never forget, because we get up there, set up the ring, show's starting, and they're having a ref bump, so they needed another ref, and for Wendy Richter and Judy Martin.
Oh boy!
And because I was the smallest guy there, someone says, "How about you?" And I said, and Judy goes, "Don't worry, I'll talk you through it." And she talked through it. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I learned so much from Judy just that night. And I even called her about a year ago and I thanked her. I said, "You're not going to remember this." But I said, "Well, I want to call her and thank her," because I never forgot that night. And it was just amazing how much I learned just that night. And after that night, I had a referee shirt in my bag my entire career. And it came in handy quite a few times.
That is tremendous.
Yeah, so that all, kind of happened because of Tom. And then, remember when Dennis Carluzzo and Eddie Sharkey ran those couple combined shows?
Sure do.
Hey, back then, there was no internet. There weren't cell phones or anything. So, and I always tell guys in the seminars too, I said, I always had an 8x10. I had a tape of some of my matches. And also I had a resume. Just like, wrestling is a job. It's a bit funny. So I was resume about who trained me, what companies I'd worked for, and stuff like that for wrestling references. And so that probably the very first one of those two combined shows, one of my favorites too growing up was Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert.
Yes.
And so I met him and I gave him my resume, 8x10, videotape, everything. And he called and said, "Do you want to come down and work for Memphis?" And I said, "Yeah," because Tom had already been down there too, doing the Dirty White Boy gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Tony, was it?
Yeah,
So,
Tony Anthony. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and Tom was nice enough, since he already was living down there and had an apartment, he let me pay really cheap rent, and I slept on his couch. So that was over the winter of 90 and 91. And then when I went in, it was a tough gig, because you're $50 a night, and then it's all driving. It was 6 days a week, twice on Saturday. Mm-hmm. So it was a full-time territory, and it was a great experience. But after I went a little bit in debt, I said, "All right, time to move back home and get a job to support my wrestling habit again."
Yeah. So
I moved back to Minneapolis, and then the next winter is when Eddie Gilbert called me and Sean and said, "You want to do your feud down here in Global in Dallas?" Which were like, so he said, "Well, I suggest you move to Nashville again, because we're using." And that's one thing I learned then was, if the budget got tight, they stopped flying people in. So if you move there and can drive to the shots, you still have a job. So I moved back to Nashville and lived with Tom again. And over that winter, Tom had been working for that UWFI group in Japan.
Sure.
Okay.
And, they wanted to come over because they were using Billy Scott. But they wanted me to train for like another, I think it was like 10 before they were going to bring me over. And this other lucha company that brought me and Sean over said they wanted us now. So I said, "Yeah, I want to go." But it was a very valuable experience to learn all kinds of stuff like that. But so Tom really helped me out along the way as far as, getting me in with the AWA, getting me a place to live when I worked for Memphis Global. And so, yeah, we got to be.
So
go ahead, Chris. I just want to do a follow-up on Tom Burton.
Oh, well, why you go and ask him about Tom Burton, because I want to follow up on Sean.
Absolutely. The one thing, Jerry, I'm sure you remember this, one of the greatest lines in the history of SNR.
I'm scared.
Tom Burton is out, and he had been down south, and he's explaining how he had attained his success down there, and he meant to say, I cut the mustard. But of course, Tom said, that's when I cut the cheese. One of the great lines of all time, and if anybody was going to say it, it was going to be Tom Beef Burton.
It'd be great if he just said, pull my finger first, and then busted out that line.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, that's hilarious. But yeah, I felt bad one time. We had a good feud, and I'll never forget, we had this street fight match or something. And
yes.
Who was the big guy that was the boxer also? They were the
Jeff Warner?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he taped up my fist to make it look like a street fight. Well, he was a boxer, so he taped it up like a boxer. I had Tom in the corner and I him in the head, and because my fist was taped so compact and everything, I put a goose egg on his head. I felt so bad.
Hey, you know what? It's all right.
Hey, good for the business.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Got to get it snug. Hey, your whole feud with Sean, did you feel like that was the one that put you on the map, like you and him? Because it started here, but then you said, they wanted to bring you down to global and have it there. Is that kind of the one that you feel kind of really could showcase what you and he could do?
Yeah, because and Sean and I have both said this. If Sean didn't move up to Minneapolis and we didn't meet each other, there's a good chance that our careers would have gone nowhere. And at the time, I guess we wanted to make it more fun. We were tired of just, and I hate to say this, but I think people were lazy at the time. There was just a bunch of big guys lumbering around doing, clotheslines and hip tosses, and we wanted to make it more exciting.
Did you feel like you had to do something to stand out then because of your size?
Yeah, at that time we had to do what the big guys couldn't. And we weren't trying to hurt the business. We loved the business, but we just wanted to make it more exciting. And there, like I said, there was a lot of guys that didn't want to work with us because of our size and didn't want to try things. So, which is sad, because I just wanted to go out and make it exciting. And at the same time, every time I went out there, I wanted to suspend everyone's belief and make them.
If you think about it, Jerry, even 30 years ago, then you guys were the precursor, the predecessor to so much of the wrestling business the way it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Look at all the small guys in the business, or smaller guys, the lucha, whatever the case may be. You really did kind of set the standard, even going way back.
I guess we were, ahead of our time, you could say. Yeah. But it was, so we were just trying to make it more exciting, and like I said, we had to do what the big guys couldn't do because a lot of them didn't want to work with us.
Yeah. So just to follow up on that, then, did you feel there was some resentment from some of the bigger guys because maybe you guys were doing something that was different, or it wasn't this big, fisticuff sort of slow lumbering big man matches that we had kind of been accustomed to?
Well, we still didn't know what we were doing. I mean, trust me, I've learned a lot from Baron Von Raschke and Sheik Adnan and a lot of the vets that would tell me, where's the fire? Slow down. And they were right. So, and it takes years and years to, learn the craft. And I'm still learning. You never stop learning. And that's the sucky part about having to quit after 24 years is I knew I had a lot of room for improvement. And I'd be on my retirement tour. There was a lot of shows I was on with Ricky Morton just, months before I had my retirement match. And I always watch Ricky, and when his match got done, I would just close the curtain, turn around, and go, man, I suck. So you never stop learning. But back then, we were just trying something different and trying to make it more exciting and still believable. And I don't. So.
Well, I got to say, for people who weren't there at the time back then, and when I hear you say, we weren't ready, we were still screwing up, blah, blah, blah. you were lighting up places like Ropers and Fridley. I mean, the intensity, even though you might not have been as polished as you wanted to be back then, the crowds were lapping it up. I mean, you were show stealers and show stoppers, bar none.
Well, we wanted to make it as real as possible.
Yeah.
And like I said, I didn't want to go out there and embarrass myself. And so every time, and that was what was drilled in my head with Brad, because the curtain wasn't pulled wide open yet.
Sure.
Bill, you go out there and, sorry, I'm outside on the deck. Bugs are getting me. But you go out there and you make those people believe everything you're doing in that ring. And and that should still be the object nowadays.
Absolutely.
But, and so that's what we did. We tried to make them believe and then it was even more nerve-wracking when you're in a smaller, intimate venue like that, because everyone's even closer to the ring.
Oh my God, they were right on top of you.
Yes. So, you couldn't be talking to each other out there, you had to really, we made it as real as possible without killing each other. For real.
Man, Jerry, I got to say, I mean, it's so refreshing, and it's amazing to me that with everything that you accomplished in the business and continue to accomplish, and I'm talking about in your actual wrestling career, winning the ECW championship and so forth, that you would say, it was kind of disappointing to you after 24 years to retire when you still had a lot to learn. I mean, that to me says so much about your character and your passion for the business, because a lot of, hey, I won the championship. They put me over,
I'm content. I'm happy.
I'm content.
Well, that's a lot of that is now with the ways people are broke into the business, because there's a lot of camps or schools out there that are just cash grabs. They don't care
absolutely
what you learn, or if they don't care if you have a love for the business and the industry, or and like Brad, it wasn't an easy camp. It was hard. It wasn't hard in a mean way, but it was rough. He made sure you wanted it. He was going to weed out who didn't want it, because he didn't want to waste his time. And so it wasn't in a mean way, but he made sure that you really wanted to do this. And I think that's the problem nowadays. There's a lot of camps that are cash grabs, and they just babysit you all the way through it. And and then right out of camp nowadays, everyone's pushed as a big superstar on an independent show in front of 30, 40 people, and then it just goes to their heads. And then you're in this for the wrong reason, because Brad told us the first day of camp, he said, first and foremost, professional wrestling is a business about making money. It's not about stroking our egos. Because anyone who does this for a significant amount of time is going to need surgeries. You will lose physically. And I even asked him, I said, even if we stay in really good shape, he said, yeah. He says, the human body isn't made for this. Boy, is he right. So I had to.
Wow.
I've had 8 surgeries, and 5 were after I retired from wrestling. I was like Humpty Dumpty. I had to get put back together again.
Wow.
So blatantly truthful. The first day of camp, he told us all this. And that's why I had to thank him, because boy, he was right, spot on everything he told us.
Well, you have become a mouthpiece for this podcast in terms of the way, at least I look at some of the stuff in the modern day era of pro wrestling with the cookie cutters. And as you say, cash grabs. And, you walk out the door, you can bring 15 friends in to this 50-seat building next week. We're going to give you a replica championship belt. It's so completely different, Jerry. And to hear you talk, and this is one of the things I've always loved about you, is your passion for the business. It's real, and you're a professional wrestler. And that's tremendous.
Well, that's like, I grew up always loving wrestling, but when I was going through Brad's camp and I learned what the business was really about, that's when I really developed a passion for it and really loved it even more. And that's why I did everything I could to help the business and not hurt it. Like, even up until a few months before my last match, if I was in a car full of heels, I'd have them drop me off a few blocks from the building and I'd walk the rest of the way.
God,
but wants to do that anymore. especially on social media.
Oh, everybody's friends, you know.
Well, they're lucky they have social media. They could use that to further angles instead of using it after you just tried to kill each other in a death match, and the next day you're going, "Thanks for the match, bro. Much love." It's like, what are you doing?
Oh man, I'm telling you, you are
use it to further the angle. They're so fortunate to have all these avenues of getting out to the public. Like you said, years ago, there was no way of getting out to the public. We're lucky you had your show.
Yeah,
that we further angles on.
Yeah.
So do you feel? I mean, do you feel like they're not only misusing it, but I mean, back when the illusion, you know, when the business was kind of exposed, do you feel like they've kind of just, it's like, well, you know, actors in movies are, you know, we're playing a part, but then we're really this. Do you feel like they have to kind of approach it more and like we're an entertainer and we're playing a part more so than we're actually in this program then? Because I don't know, to me it kind of seems like there's this clear breakage of the person on screen and the person off screen, kind of like there would be with any other sort of, you know, television or movie or whatnot.
No, that's one thing Brad taught us too. He says, never let them know the real you. That's why years ago you had curtains up so people couldn't see in the back. And he said, unless obviously you run into them at the supermarket or something. But keep the mystique up. You know, it's like when that masked magician came out and revealed all the secrets of magic. I don't want to know that.
That's exactly right.
I don't want to know the secrets. And even now, when guys ask me, hey, will you watch my match? I go, sure. They go, well, I go, don't tell me. I want to be surprised.
Oh, man.
I don't know in advance what's happening. That's what kills me about nowadays. Why do all the fans want to know everything in advance, what's going to happen? I don't understand that. Are these the same people who say when they go to see a movie, I don't want to see any spoilers?
There you go.
Well, what the heck? Why do you want to know in advance? And I know what it is. It's a lot of them want to show off how much insider information they have to their buddies. But that just, to me, would ruin all the fun. You know?
I am so with you on this. I'm just, you know, enthralled by what you're saying because, man, you know, when somebody like me or Chris does it, you know, we come across as, you know, bitter or whatever. But you're Jerry Lynn and you're telling it the way it is.
Well,
you know,
I love the business. You know,
do you feel like the social media and like all this? Do you feel is it good or bad for the business that all this information is out there and anybody can look up anything at any time?
I think it can be both, but I think now the majority of it's bad.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's the boys' fault themselves because they want to leak all the dirty laundry that's happening in the back that the fans shouldn't even know about.
What's the point in that? I don't understand that.
I know what it is. And this started years ago with the sheets and everything. They leak information so the sheets and the websites and the podcasts will talk favorably about them and their matches and give them their... And so what? You know who will tell you that if you've had a good match or not? The fans.
There you go.
Fans will tell you if that was a good match or not. It's that simple. That's all you need. Why are you working for for the press? You should be working for the fans.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of them aren't anymore.
I'm with you.
You know, and I hope I don't come off as old and bitter. I'm not. I love the industry. I love the business.
No.
I think the boys should be doing their best to try and pull the curtain back shut.
Well, and I think, Jerry, I think that's at the very beginning. I think we said it's going to be objective, and I think this is great because to hear it from somebody like you who is actively involved in AEW, that I feel like it holds more weight rather than, you know, some of us, you know, just saying, you know, we think it's a detriment, but to have somebody like you who's actively involved, I think, I don't know about you, Mick, but I feel like it holds a lot more weight right now.
Absolutely, it does. And Jerry knows, and I'm sure this will speak to some of what he's talking about. I don't like to go to a building where the fans are coming in and the guys are still in the ring going over their spots.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
My God.
You know, I mean, and you see that more and more. I don't get it.
If I ran a show, I'd never let anyone do that.
Absolutely.
An hour before the doors open, you get out of the ring.
Yeah, and as you said, Jerry, too, a lot of times guys will go in there and they'll beat the shit out of each other for 30, 45 minutes. And then afterward, they're out there with their arms around each other, sitting at the bar or whatever it is. And it absolutely takes away that suspension of disbelief. And that is a lost art in this business.
I know, but they and a lot of them don't know, and they haven't been broke in right, and the business has changed, and it will continue to change and evolve. And one thing I learned in ECW is that the business will change and evolve, but if you want to survive in it, you have to be willing to change and evolve with it too, but only to a certain extent. There are certain basic fundamentals we should always adhere to. And, and it's sad that they don't anymore.
I think this is great.
I tell the guys, this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I want a part of that billion. Don't you want a part of that billion? So we should be doing something to try and help the business instead of continually hurt it.
Wow.
I don't get it.
I think that's a great place to end part one, Chris. What do you think?
We never got sorry, guys.
We have so much to talk to you about, and we
can keep going if you want to do a part 3.
I can't. Well, you know what? We're going to come right back next week with part 2, and
like who knows? We might have a part 3. See, this is just so great because I feel like these conversations are best when they're organic. Like we have topics we want to hit on, but then to me, I feel like the best part is when you get into these conversations and it naturally evolves into something. And I think that's a great place to stop for part 1, because I know that we've got at least a part 2, and who knows? We may have a part 3. So
let me get a cord. My phone's getting low. I'm going to go grab a cord here.
That's all right. And you know what? We're actually, I think, going to disconnect because we had a couple of issues with your feed.
Oh.
And Chris will probably have you come back in and rejoin us for part 2. Correct,
okay.
Chris?
Yep. We'll have him go ahead and reconnect here shortly for part 2. But that being said here, Mick, I thought very conversational. And again, we focus on the old AWA, but at the same time, I feel like this is one of those conversations that we need to have. It's one of those conversations because it's all out there. Let's be brutally honest, Mick. It's out there to talk about how the business has changed, and to talk to Jerry about that. I think it's important because he was pretty frank. I mean, he was pretty frank, and if he's saying that to us, I can only imagine maybe the information that he's trying to convey to the talent in the AEW locker room.
I loved every minute of it. I could not have asked for a better free-flowing conversation. Yes. And again, like you say, Chris, when somebody like me or somebody like you voices an opinion about the business, and the way things should or should not be, people listen, but sometimes it's, who are you? Well, you know what? Jerry Lynn just told you. And I'm a proud Jerry Lynn mark. So
I am too, because I know that we're going to get into a couple things in ECW, and his ECW run and his matches with RVD, that's stuff that makes like the skin, the hair on my arms go up just thinking about that run and what happened at Roy Wilkins Auditorium in St. Paul. So we're going to go ahead and end it here. We're not going to do any shout outs. We're going to go ahead and we're going to push that off to the next one. Do want to thank 7th Avenue Pizza as well, that you can see up there, 7thAvenuePizza.com. Check it out. It's great frozen pizza. You can get it all over the metro. And let us know. I mean, take a picture. If you've got your pizza, go ahead and take a picture of the pizza. If you've got AWA Unleashed swag from Soda Stick, go ahead and take a picture. We'll get you on the podcast. Take a picture. Let us know where you're from, who your favorite wrestler is, your favorite AWA wrestler, and also Mick as well. Big news regarding the AWA Reunion number 2.
Number 2, it will be October 29th, Embassy Suites in Bloomington, Minnesota on American Boulevard. We'll have all the information on our various websites, and we'll talk more about it next week.